So the question that we raised right at the start of our program, do politicians have different rules when talking about corruption in the country versus corruption in just cricket? Just to give you an example of what we mean, here's former BCCI chief and current head of the Mumbai Cricket Association, Sharad Pawar, talking about, or rather not talking about, the IPL fixing/betting fiasco.
Some believe that the recent developments in the BCCI has dented the image of cricket's premier body. As a former president, as someone who has also been the head of the ICC, does that concern you at all?
I don't want to react on this question at all, because day to day I am not looking about the BCCI or ICC. I have withdrawn from that, except Mumbai cricket.
You are still the head of the Mumbai Cricket Association.
But not in BCCI, and that's why definitely you got a right to ask question about Mumbai cricket, but not BCCI or ICC. And I am not involved. I have no time also for nowadays. Except
but you must be aware of what is happening.
I'm not aware.
These are very serious charges against someone who is the president of the BCCI. His son-in-law is said to be involved in betting.
You see, my priority is elections. My priority is not BCCI. No, I don't read the news also about this.
But does it at least concern you as a cricket lover and as someone who's been such a strong supporter of Indian cricket?
I don't pay any attention to these type of news. If I have to pay some attention to it, I'm just trying to get information about what is happening in the ground.
Why are you silent on this?
No, I have no time.
Are waiting for you to.
No, I have no time. I have no time. My priorities are different. My priorities are elections.
You don't think Mr. Srinivasan should step down or step aside?
I don't discuss also, I don't read also. So why are you wasting your time and my time?
No, I'm only asking you because you've been so involved in Indian cricket that at a time of such crisis, the fact that you're taking a back seat. Once upon a time.
Yeah. And when I was there, India won the World Cup.
All right, Sharad Pawar there says that when he was the head of the ICC, India won the World Cup. It's worth reminding him that when he was also the president of the ICC, the biggest fixing fiasco broke in world cricket. That involved Pakistani players. Unfortunately, not much was heard from the ICC president then, Mr. Sharad Pawar. Now, joining me for the debate this evening are two gentlemen. Sanjay Jha joins us live from Mumbai and Naveen Upadhyay joins us from Patna. Sanjay Jha is, of course, Congress spokesperson. Naveen Upadhyay is the political editor of The Pioneer. But the reason they are here, apart from their political connection, is also that they're avid sports fan. Sanjay Jha wrote for Cricket Next for a very long time, and Naveen Upadhyay in fact wrote about sports in the Times of India way back in the 80s. Okay, let me start with you, Mr. Jha. And you know, why just blame Mr. Sharad Pawar? Let me just tell our viewers first, there are many other big political bigwigs who are also involved in cricket administration. Here's a list of some of those heavyweights we are talking about. Let's start with the biggest fish in the water at the moment. BJP's prime ministerial candidate Narendra Modi is also president of the Gujarat Cricket Association. Congress president also, we've got Rajiv Shukla is a BCCI vice president. BJP's Arun Jaitley is heading the BCCI legal committee. We'll have those graphics up on our screen very shortly. Also, Anurag Thakur is BCCI's joint secretary. Omar Abdullah, Sharad Pawar, Jyotiraditya Scindia. I'm just taking a few names that are part of the BCCI big political bigwigs at the moment. But unfortunately, none of them spoke during the big BCCI fixing/betting case that came up. Okay, let me now go across to Mr. Jha. Now, most of these people don't spare a single opportunity to take on anything to do with corruption in any form when, of course, a member of an opposition party is involved. But now that there has been such a burning issue in the past few months in what is India's most popular sport, none of them are saying anything. And these include Congress politicians also. Can you defend them on this issue, Mr. Jha?
You know, Nikhil, I'll be very upfront with you, and I have believed that consistently, and even within my party, I advocate the same philosophy, which is that politicians should stay away from sports federations. If you look at all the logic that was being sold for a considerable period, was that if you have a politician at the helm of affairs, and not just cricket, you know, you look at virtually any sport in India at a state, regional or national level, we'll have a multitude of politicians occupying very pivotal positions for inordinately long periods. Now, the logic that was being created was that if you have a politician, he's able to create, you know, get permissions and and escalate matters and basically facilitate or fructify whatever challenges one must face. But I have always been against that. Why do you need to create this environment where you need someone to facilitate it? If it's correct, it's logical, it's in the interest of sports people, it's in the interest of public of India and the spectators, it should happen. And why do you need a politician to give special, weightage or use his political clout to make things happen? So I do believe that politicians must, technically in a democracy, Nikhil, anybody is free to contest in the election for whatever post they like. So I'm not saying that politicians can't do it or they are principally bad or anything of the kind. There are some wonderful people out there like Jyotiraditya Scindia, etc. But the point I want to make is that there should be a limited influence. It should be for a limited period. And it should be extremely transparent so that nobody abuses their power and it goes against the sport itself.
Mr. Jha, it's a noble thought that you say politicians should not be part of sports administration. Unfortunately, there are many. We just had a list of politicians who are part of cricket administration. Many belong to the Congress party. Then, it's a noble thought that you mentioned. You mentioned Jyotiraditya Scindia. He's also part of cricket administration. Unfortunately, we didn't hear a word from him during the BCCI crisis.
Well, as you heard even what Mr. Pawar said, that, what happens is when you are part of a larger sports federation, like, he is heading the Madhya Pradesh Cricket Association. The BCCI has got its own elected members, its own office bearers who take the call. We all know, Nikhil, you know it, that Mr. Srinivasan is like the virtual Adolf Hitler in the BCCI. Is now virtually taken over the ICC itself. So I think these are challenges where I think all politicians need to be careful, because bottom line, it comes back and haunts you tomorrow, because Mr. Narendra Modi today, who goes on and on and on about corruption, doesn't talk about it in his own government, and is silent on BCCI, has had a remarkably conspicuous mum where the issues of corruption in BCCI is concerned. So, but I do think the media also needs to raise these questions at a more intense and strategic level.
Well, that's exactly what we're doing, Mr. Jain. Lest people think that we're only targeting the Congress politicians. I'll go across to Mr. Upadhyay. Let's talk about the biggest fish in the water. Like I mentioned, the Prime Ministerial candidate from BJP, Narendra Modi. He heads the Gujarat Cricket Association. His criticism of Congress as far as corruption is concerned is very scathing. But then he sees corruption in the organization that he's part of, he never speaks.
It's a fact what you are saying, because I will give you a specific example. When Mr. Pawan Kumar Bansal faced charges of his king's involvement in a bribery case, the entire political class joined hands, including BJP people, everybody, to pull him down. He had to resign because his relative was involved in a scam, and Mr. Bansal was seen patronizing him. But when the same thing happened in case of Mr. Srinivasan, his son-in-law has been indicted by a committee, as there are telltale signals and evidences of his involvement in betting. I mean, there is a complete silence of the same people who brought down Mr. Bansal. The same people who raised this issue so effectively then. In the past also, you have seen numerous examples when a politician or a minister had to resign because his kith or kin was involved in a corruption charge.
Correct.
But when it comes to Mr. Srinivasan, whether it's a question of Mr. Arun Jaitley or Mr. Rajiv Shukla or everybody, they are completely silent. And I tell you, this cricket administration has become a playground for this entire political class. They think there is a lot of glamour, there is a lot of money. If they are so interested in sports, why don't they go and encourage other sports which are dying, starving for want of patronage and money?
Right, Mr. Upadhyay, you raise very valid question, and that brings me to this very important question. You've been covering politics for so long. Have you ever seen, and do you think BCCI in that sense is an exception, to ideologically opposite parties come under the same roof and join hands? I mean, BJP and Congress are completely opposite to each other in their thinking, in the issues that they talk about. But yet, when it comes to the BCCI, have you ever seen a scenario like that they're all in together?
This is a complete nexus, I mean, this political divides, this completely blurs. When you have to protect your own interests, these politicians who are ruling this cricket administration in India, they don't want genuine sportsmen to come and govern cricket. I mean, they give this very perverse logic that money comes to cricket only because political class is patronizing it. The fact is that money comes to cricket because people are watching cricket and advertising and sponsors are encouraging cricket. So whether the politicians are there or not, cricket will continue to flourish in this country.
Okay.
But they give this very perverse logic. This cricket is becoming popular in India and we are doing very well because of us. This is a fallacy. This is a nonsense.
Okay, apart
But
from
this is the nexus of politicians to capture cricket.
Right. I'll go across to Mr. Jha. As Mr. Upadhyay says, apart from being a nexus, do you also think, Sanjay, that it's also part of the larger strategy? Ahead of the elections, no one really wants to get their hands dirty and talk about these issues, which may have an adverse effect on their image ahead of this election. Could this be part of a strategy, a political strategy, not to talk about these things? See no evil, hear no evil.
Well, Nikhil, frankly, the IPL betting scam that happened last year is 1 year ahead of the elections. It actually ought to have become a issue creating a huge furor. It didn't happen. But, I just want to make a point that if you have a politician with the capability and the efficiency and the integrity of somebody like Jyotiraditya Scindia in Madhya Pradesh, that's a good thing. That's a welcome. There are politicians who can bring in
like I
a
mentioned,
certain
the same
refreshing
Jyotiraditya
approach to
Scindia
it.
did not mention a word when the entire fiasco was in front of us.
Yeah, let me answer that. That's what
Sure.
I'm saying, that, end of day, each of them has a limited influence based on, whether they are part of the larger BCCI, team that has to respond to the crisis.
Well, then why be part of a body where you cannot correct
That's
things?
exactly the point. Exactly, that's exactly my point. That today, if you look at the BCCI, it's so opaque. It's got wheels within wheels. It's a hugely political environment. It is. Even if there's a non-politician in Srinivasan, possibly he's the kind of a person who, on a chessboard, is so wily that he can possibly beat the most, dyed-in-wool politician today. And it's remarkable. I think Mr. Srinivasan is in a league of his own.
Okay.
But I think it's important for politicians to generally desist from sports federations. If they have a role to play, they should play it for a limited tenure. And I would like to see sports people like Gavaskar and Rahul Dravid and the Kumbbles of the world.
Right.
I was very disappointed, Nikhil, when all the cricketers who had won elections in Karnataka quit and left. I mean, that was very disappointing personally.
All
but
right.
I think I hope that will change.